Okay, so the experiment worked. This guy will unscrew. It took a little bit of force to get it to unscrew, but the nut stayed captive in the resin. And I've already unscrewed these completely and screwed them back in. As you can see here, it works. Anyway, it works. The nut stays captive. I have to figure out a way, which I know what the answer is, so that this isn't so cloudy. And actually, what I think I'm going to do, instead of worrying about the cloudiness, which is all air in there, and I do have a makeshift pressure pot. So I could, in theory, put the resin while it's in its mixed state before I pour it, put the cup into the pressure pot, pressurize it for a little while till the air bubbles get out, and then pour it. Anyway, this works. So I came up with this idea here. These are not spacers. They're actually screws. They're kind of like coupling nuts. I'm sure you guys seen coupling nuts. They're octagon shaped. And it just so happens that my lovely Ace Hardware didn't have any 1032 coupling nuts. They had them, but they were out of stock. So I went with these instead. And this will, with a nut on that end, the coupling nut here, nut there, the length of the magnet itself with its housing, with its little red shell housing, is 1.25 inches. So if I make this, if I allow this to sit out, thank you, 1 1/8 inches, that'll give me 1/8 of an inch for tightening down. And that should work. And I do this all the way around and I pour the resin. Right now I'm printing out another cap that goes on the top of this because I was able to figure out how to get a cap on here, screw it in there, and then attach or put the rotor on the cap, adhere it to it with special glue that's made for this type, for PLA type of plastic. It's called acrylic number 16. I think it's from Scribs or Scriggs or whatever it is. Anyway, this is the right stuff. That's the stuff I use to make my coil housings, because I make these in 2 pieces. I could print it in one, but it would be too difficult. There'd be a lot of infill I'd have to, or not, support material I'd have to pull out. So it's just as easy to do it in 2 and then glue it together using that stuff. And that's super strong. Anyway, this does work. While the other thing is printing, I'm going to figure out, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to do this one like this. And then I've got these nuts here, which I may use for the 4 and 6 pole. Where did my, oh, the 6 pole is being glued right now. I may use these to captive the, or whatever you want to call it. I may use these because they're kind of cool looking. Anyway, just wanted to give you guys a quick update. I think this is a pretty good setup. I'm deciding now whether I should leave the hole here a little bit small so that this screws into it, or make it so that it slides through. I haven't really figured that out yet. And I may even put a washer right here. I think that'll be good enough. It'll be captive inside of the acrylic or inside of the resin. I mean, it should be okay. I can't imagine that coming loose. Anyway, ciao. Of course, if I want to get fancy, I could do this. I could do the coupling and then this captive nut at the end here, which would definitely grab more of the resin, if you will. And if I really think about it, I don't even really need the coupling nut, although it would help keep the resin off of the screw, which if it got on is not a bad thing. It does make it nice and tight, but I think I'd rather have it a little bit freer. Now that I'm looking at this, I think this might work out much better, although I didn't get enough. I only got enough of these to do on the 6-pole rotor. I think that I get enough. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, actually I only got enough for the 4-pole rotor. That's all right. Store's right around the corner. But I think that might be better. Yeah, let me know what you think. So these are kind of expensive. I think they were like 75 cents each or something, which is a little bit too expensive for something like this. So I think I'm just going to go with this. I got the washer there, the barrel nut there, and then the captive nut on the end. And the reason is this and this together is this won't end up grabbing enough of that thread, because I need this to be at least 1 1/8 inches when I set it, because the magnet itself is a little bit over 1.25 inches in length with the housing. So I want to be able to grab it, and even that is kind of pushing it. So it'll end up being, let me see if I can pull it out. It'll end up being, yeah, just grabbing the nut in there. And in fact, if I'm really careful about measuring this, it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1 5/16 inches. So if I were to pull this out, yeah. And so this nut doesn't really grab it, because that's the actual length right there. No, that's actually 1.25 inches. So yeah, I should have gotten the smaller barrel nuts. Anyway, it's an easy fix. I could just leave it like this, just to have something to grab onto, or something to cover the bolt, which is what I'm really trying to do here. I'm just trying to cover the bolt. So I think that'll work. And then if I wanted to use a longer bolt, I could, or a longer, bolt. So I think that will work. It's enough for the resin to grab. It'll pretty much protect the bolt from the resin. I mean, some resin will seep in there, but that's no big deal. Yeah, I think that's good. So here's a little preview of kind of what it would look like. This doesn't have the resin in it, and I'm thinking it might not even need it. But man, that thing will spin forever. You gotta love those VCR bearings. So let me stop it a little bit. So we've got several components here. We have the base, this coupling that attaches to the base, a disc that goes on top of there. This part gets attached to the disc via that glue, and then I drill and tapped 4 holes in the VCR head. And these are 7/8 by 7/8 barrel. And some, I think a few of them are N52, some of them are N45s or something like that. It's been a long time since I bought those. But yeah, this thing works beautifully. If I tilt it up like this, you see there is no wobbling. It is absolutely balanced. And this is the 6 magnet rotor. I've got a 4 magnet rotor here. And then the 8 magnet rotor is right here, which I will most likely do the resin in there with the setup I showed you before. This one, I don't think it needs the resin for several reasons. One, the threads, I did an undersized hole in the rotor housing for the main bearing bolt. So I had to run these into the housing with a cordless, a drill gun. I couldn't do it by hand because it was too tight. I could take it out by hand, but that is really tight. I mean, this would have to be going at a crazy speed for these to come flying off. And so I think they're all right. Anyway, I think that's all I'm going to do today. I may just quickly set up a coil just to see it run. But I may change out these bolts for the shorter ones if I'm not going to put the resin in there. Because the shorter ones will do the exact same thing, and I'll put one little nut on there. That should work. But we'll see. We shall see. I think what I want to do, though, is use the shorter ones for the 8-pole rotor, which is why I'm doing it this way, so that I can take these magnets out of the rotor that's currently in there and switch them over to the larger rotor. Anyway, just kind of wanted to give you a little sample of what's going on there. All right, so I'm ready to pour this guy. But what I got to do is what I failed to realize is, in order for me to get to the bolts that bolt it down to the rotor bearing, I'm going to need to figure out some way to not get resin on there. So I'm thinking I can glue these little smokestacks kind of things. Yeah, I can glue them. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it. Oh, no, because I think I'm going to put some black dye. I don't know what to really use for dye. I'm sure my wife's got some water-based food coloring. But what I can do is, if I can't find any more of these black tubes, I can get a straw. I can use 4 pieces of a straw. But yeah, I gotta put little smokestacks on each one of these so that we don't get any got to make sure that those are all tight so that we don't get any resin in the hole there. Of course, I could just, when I'm done pouring, drill out the hole. It'll be available. Yeah, you know what? That's right. Duh. I'll let the resin cure, and then I'll just drill the holes out. Yeah, that shouldn't be that hard. I can drill it from this side, too. Straight on through instead of dealing with a smokestack. Thanks, guys. So I just poured the 8-pole rotor, and I put some dark blue pigment in there, and then I poured it halfway, and then I just poured regular clear pigment in the center to kind of make that cloud effect. I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully it'll be good. Hitting it with a flame every few seconds to knock off the let me see if I can do this one-handed. There we go. And so that cloud is not, I mean, it's air, but it's mostly the clear resin I put on top of the dark colored resin. Anyway, hopefully it'll be good. If not, we'll do it again. Also, too, I never checked online to see if regular old water-soluble food coloring is any good for resin. I know they make products for resin, pigment that you can buy, but I'm not that much into it. This batch of resin is from Total Boat. They're really good from what I heard. And this guy, without even doing a lot of aerating, came kind of clear. But I don't do enough resin casting to invest in, dyes and a pressure pot. Although, like I said earlier, I have a makeshift one. I have to put it together. I should do that so that when I do these resin things, I can at least aerate the resin before I pour it in there. And I got this thing as level as I could, and it seems to be okay. It's bulging in all the right areas there. Anyway, hopefully by this time next week, this puppy will be up and running. It's actually not looking too bad now. I keep hitting it with the flame, and it's getting clearer and clearer. And so like I said, it was dark blue food coloring. And so it'll give it kind of a darker tone. But hopefully if I keep my eye on it and I keep hitting it with the flame for the next, I don't know, half an hour, should be all right. All right, guys, ciao.